We are going to talk about the first half of qualifying for the U.S. men's national team, looking back at the 8 World Cup qualifying matches they have played. And to do that, I am bringing on my very good friend, Andrew Buccellato, and a voice you have all come to learn to love, Caleb Cook. Now, these gentlemen are going to help me kind of look at key metrics and answer some tough questions about what we have done as a team, looking at the first 8 matches of World Cup qualifying, and then also kind of looking ahead at what needs to be done. And we'll give a grade to the overall campaign thus far. Before I do that, I do want to tell you that I am recording this intro with COVID. I tested positive, definitely have symptoms. I want to encourage everyone to get vaccinated and get boosted if you have not done so already, to keep yourself and others safe. Before we talk about the qualifying campaign as a whole, just want to go through real quick about this 1-0 win that the U.S. had over Bosnia and Herzegovina in a friendly on Saturday, December 18th. It was a boring friendly, to be quite honest. I thought the first half was fine, created a couple chances, probably could have had 2 goals. Ricardo Pepi missing completely on a sitter within right at the 6-yard box, and Jordan Morris's diving header denied by the Bosnian goalkeeper. So that was a little disappointing. And then a red card in the 40th minute kind of slowed everything down in the game. Bosnia were very content to just sit back. The people I was watching with, we were kind of joking and laughing because it seemed like Bosnia would have one of their counters and it would be like, okay, they had 1 guy come forward. And then, the next time they had 2. And then the next time they had 3. And then it was like, okay, that's about all they put forward was 3, maybe 4. It was frustrating to watch this match, knowing that we had some young, promising talent on the bench that Gregg Berhalter just chose not to bring into the match, or if he did, chose to bring them on way too late. Starting lineup was Matt Turner in goal, Brooks Lennon getting his debut at right back, Walker Zimmerman and Henry Kessler in the middle, and George Bello at left back. Midfield was Johnny Cardoso as the 6, and your 2 8s were Kellen Acosta and Christian Roldan, because that is what everyone wanted to see before Christmas. Your 3 attacking players were Jordan Morris on the right to start, Jesus Ferreira on the left as a winger to start, and Ricardo Pepi as a striker. Now, this lineup didn't bother me except for the fact that we had Roldan and Acosta as your 8s, but Gregg's gonna Gregg. I was actually kind of intrigued to watch and see what Jesus Ferreira would do as a winger, because I think he's a very talented player and a player that clearly does well in Burhalter's system, but he's really only been used as a striker, more even a false 9, if you will, under Burhalter. So this was a chance for him to test his skills and his technical abilities in a different position to see if maybe this is a way to get him onto the field more often. Unfortunately, I don't think that went well for him. He had a few bright spots in the beginning of the game, but kind of fell off after that. I thought Jordan Morris was, for a guy coming back from ACL injury within this year, that was amazing. Very proud of his recovery and glad he is back with the U.S. men's national team. I think that whether you like it or not, he is going to factor into the winger depth chart now that he's healthy. Johnny, I thought, was actually pretty solid. I don't think he was really tested all that much defensively, but I thought he made some good recovery defensively. Wasn't super awesome passing the ball with those big diags that he tried that often came up short, but I thought it was a much better showing from him than what we saw earlier this year in Olympic qualifying. Ricardo Pepi was very disappointing. I think we needed to see more from him. He was very kind of unsure of himself in the final 2 matches of qualifying that we had this year, and it would have been nice to see him a little bit more confident and bag a goal. And he didn't. He had a sitter and he missed it completely. That was disappointing. I want to say that Brooks Lennon, I thought, was pretty solid at right back. And Walker Zimmerman, in his starting job as center back, for me, was the man of the match. I thought he was head and shoulders above everyone on the field, period. And that was kind of nice to see for Walker. It was probably a good showing for him in front of Burhalter to say that, yeah, I know this isn't a big friendly, it's not a great opponent, but I'm still giving you a very, very good performance. He was the highest rated by most sites, and he was the U.S. Soccer man of the match. Burhalter waited a long time to bring in subs. that was a little frustrating. I don't know why he couldn't have done that. Bosnia got a red card in the 40th minute, and after that, everything kind of slowed down. We did not make subs until the 60th minute when Zardes came on for Pepe, Reynolds on for Lennon, and Jackson Ewell, for some reason, had to see more of him one more time in 2021, came on for Johnny. And then not until the 78th minute, Gregg brought on more subs, Cole Bassett for Jordan Morris, and Cade Cowell for Jesus Ferreira. I like these subs. It was good to see these young guys get their debut. Congrats to both of them for getting their debuts with the U.S. men's national team. Nothing really changed, though, about the game. And again, I think that's because Roldan and Acosta were just ineffective as the eights. 84th minute, Jonathan Gomez comes on for George Bello. Jonathan Gomez, a dual national Mexican-American left back. He has spent time with the Mexican national team this year. Glad we got him into a camp and got him onto the field. And he contributed to the goal that we ended up scoring, that Cole Bassett rebounded home in the 89th minute. Very much a good kind of Gregg Berhalter type goal of a winger or a midfielder coming into the box late. Bassett did that very well. But it was Gomez's shot that triggered that sequence, if you will. Reynolds crossed it in. It kind of didn't go anywhere. Zardes lays it off. Gomez hits a shot. It's rebounded, and Bassett is there to collect it. I'm really high on Cole Bassett. I think he has a lot of Brendan Aronson about him in that he works hard. He does good defensive work, and when he has time, he can make things happen on offense. I don't think anyone in this squad who played tonight raised their stock necessarily. Even Walker Zimmerman, who I said was very good, I don't think he rose on the depth chart. I think he is where he is. I don't think anyone else hurt themselves necessarily. I do think that, in my eye, I've seen enough Jackson Ewell at the 6. I don't need to see Jackson Ewell for the U.S. men's national team really ever again. And I certainly don't need to see Kellen Acosta as an 8 again. He has been very ineffective in that position. He doesn't do that well on the U.S. men's national team. I understand he plays that for Colorado, but it just isn't a great fit for him here for the U.S. men's national team. Happy that Brooks Lennon and George Bello got the start. As an Atlanta United fan, that made me happy. But other than that, it was just a very frustrating match to watch. Like I said, probably could have had a couple goals in the first half. We were lucky to get the final goal because it took we didn't do very well in the second half trying to break down the bunkering Bosnian defense. But ultimately, you close out the year on a win. 17th win of 2021. Congratulations to Burhalter for that. Weird milestone. We've played a lot of matches this year. We've won most of them. Great. I don't have anything else to say. Let's move on to this roundtable discussion with Andrew Buccellato and Caleb Cook.
All right, everyone. Now that we have talked about that weird and somewhat meaningless but painful to watch friendly between Bosnia and the United States men's national team, let's refocus our attention on World Cup qualifying. I want to have kind of a midterm evaluation of Gregg Berhalter and company through the qualifying campaign. And to do that, I have brought on two people who you have heard on this podcast before, Caleb Cook and Andrew Buccellato. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me. Caleb, it's almost Christmas. Are you ready? Do you have all the presents wrapped for the kids, and have they found them yet?
Normally I'm done, but this was a moving year for us, so we're all over the place right now. We're doing all right, but this week's going to be busy. We'll say that.
Andrew, your kids are not quite as adventurously or able to find things yet, but have you hidden the gifts well?
I don't know if we've hidden them well because we're definitely going to be recycling gifts that weren't open at birthday parties. But let's put it this way. The presents are on a different level than when the kids sleep, and so the kids generally don't go perusing for presents where they don't normally go. Yeah. So it works out pretty well.
The advantage of having a toddler and a child who doesn't walk yet. So that's nice.
Enjoy it while you can.
Yeah. Caleb has the opposite, and I'm sure they're a little bit more nosy and care.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, speaking of Christmas and presents, we've had a lot of gifts from the U.S. men's national team this year. That's a terrible segue, but we're going to make it that way anyway. Obviously, we got a Nations League trophy and a Gold Cup trophy over the summer, but we got into World Cup qualifying, which is really what matters. World Cup qualifying is, I would say, all that matters for Gregg Berhalter and company, because we did not qualify for 2018. We are in a redemption cycle. Before we really get started to talk about all this, Caleb, I want to know, just how do you feel right now about our chances to qualify for the 2022 FIFA World Cup?
I mean, I still feel confident. I feel like we'll do it, but it was, I guess a little bit less stressful when it was a 2-pony race, and now you got Canada out of nowhere just became good. I mean, what's going on with that? Panama's playing well. Like, they're trying to make this thing competitive. I don't know how much I like that.
Yeah, it's having more than Mexico to compete with has definitely thrown a wrench into things. Andrew, again, it feels like we're in a good spot, but how confident are you that 2022 will be a tournament with the United States there?
I'm pretty confident of that. Like Caleb said, I mean, obviously you've got Canada decided to just come out of nowhere. But I mean, the good thing is, in my opinion, is the U.S. controls its own destiny. I mean, you're playing Mexico, you're playing Canada, and you're playing Panama. Yep. If you win 2 of those 3 games, you're in. Like, that's what it comes down to. And it's going to come down to getting results and doing that. But I mean, I'm pretty confident. I mean, sitting where you're sitting, you've already won against Mexico at home. So as long as you get anything from that game, it's a positive, and you're in a good position going forward.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess to kind of just recap where we all stand, as we are at 8 games of the 14 played through the qualification, final round of qualification. You have in first place, I think this is a surprise. I think that's fair to say. You have Canada. They have been talking a lot of smack about how they have somehow managed to top the group. But Canada in first place, how do you rate their level of opposition to the U.S. right now? Andrew?
I don't know. Canada's hard to read to me, because they can come off as brilliant, and other times they've had some results that you're like, okay, that's the Canada that we know and we're used to. To be honest with you, I'm not really sure. I have to double check I think Canada has the hardest close of all the teams.
They definitely have the fewest home matches of the matches in 2026 or 2022. So
so I think they're going to have a little trouble there. I think when looking at this, they have to go to Costa Rica. They have to close at Panama.
Yeah,
that's going to be 2 teams that are desperate to not get in that playoff fixture, where I think that's where you're going to see something happen there. I don't know. I guess I would say overall, I would feel that, with Reina coming back soon, hopefully Weah is going to be healthy, and Pulisic seems to be kind of getting out of some of the injury woes that he's had. I'd feel a little bit more confident in terms of the U.S. men's national team compared to Canada, because I feel like even though we've had injuries and significant injuries, we're starting to get everyone back, where Canada loses one of their 2 or 3 core players. I don't know how they're going to replace them. So that's kind of where I would put it, where I feel like the U.S. has more room for a margin of error. I feel like Canada's margin of error is like razor thin. If one thing starts falling, they're in trouble quick.
That's fair. Caleb, I mean, they're on 16 points, Canada is. So how do you judge them so far in their
I mean, there's 2 things. 2 things that Andrew said. They've had a lot of favorable matchups, home matchups, and it's reflected in the table. I mean, yeah, they've played well, but they had the easier side, and they've gotten that out of the way. Now we get a few favorable matches coming up our way, but then also you got to think they are 1-2 injuries away from playing who knows what guy from the Canadian Premier League. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I say that to say that they are not nearly as deep as they need to be. They've been fortunate to not have like some major injuries, but I mean, let's say Davies goes down, God forbid, Tajon. I don't wish for any of this, but
Yeah.
Buchanan, Davies, David, like they've got some key guys playing some key roles. But if one of those or two of those guys go down, like we've had the injuries, I don't see them riding that out the way we've been able to. I just don't see the depth coming from the Canadian men's national team. So I think that's something to look at. Again, I don't want to wish ill will on anyone, but let's say reality sets in and they have the harder part of their schedule coming up. I could see them tumbling a few spots.
Yeah, I think that Canada's depth is definitely a question, and also their actual schedule ahead of them. They have they are currently 3 draws out of 3 away matches, but they have 4 wins out of 5 home matches. They are yet to lose. The only team in the octagonals yet to lose, but I definitely think that with the tough away matches they have coming up, we will probably see those points start to dip a little bit. They did get points at US and at Mexico, so that's good for them. But they're on the top at 16. The US is in second on 15. Mexico currently in third place in that automatic qualifying spot with 14, and Panama at 14. Now, this is a little bit weird. I don't think anyone expected Panama to be competing for that 4th qualification spot and even competing for an automatic qualification spot. Mexico, I feel like they are... I think that they're okay. I don't think there's really a lot to worry about them not qualifying. But Panama and Mexico, Andrew, who do you see actually getting that 3rd automatic spot, and who's going to have to go to that intercontinental playoff?
I think it's going to be Mexico. I mean, I just, with Panama, just quit browsing, with Panama having to play Canada, US, and I think Mexico, if I remember correctly as well.
Yeah.
And yeah. I mean, that Panama's got a gauntlet. They're about to find out if they're for real or if they're basically just kind of the byproduct of stealing a win.
Yeah.
And then, they're just riding that against beating the teams that they should beat. I mean, realistically, I'm surprised. I would have figured that it would have been US, Mexico at top. Then it would have been Canada, Costa Rica, and Jamaica would have been the next 3. And then you'd have Panama, El Salvador, and Honduras down at the bottom. It's been... Jamaica, it looks like they found a little something here lately. So you can't write them off entirely yet because, I mean, in my opinion, I think the only 2 people that are 2 nations that I think are really going to end up being a lock are going to be the US and Mexico, just because the way that the schedule balances out and the fact that they get some key games at home when they need them. So outside of that, Panama, I mean, I don't know. I see them. I can see them hanging on, but I don't know. I can also see Costa Rica snagging that spot from them at the end if Panama gets in a little bit of a tailspin and loses 2 or 3 in a row.
Yeah, Panama at 14 points are 5 ahead of Costa Rica right now, but they do play at Costa Rica next window. They also play at Mexico and host Jamaica. So, Caleb, as you look at Panama and Mexico, what do you make of who's going to figure out and finish where?
I'd have to agree. I think you look at a team like Mexico, they're too good to be struggling. They had, I mean, that matchup in Canada, it was a zillion degrees below zero. I mean, that's rough. It could go any way, but they've had a rough go. But you look and you think the cream's going to rise to the top. They're way more talented.
Yeah.
I think they figure some stuff out, and Andrew talking about Jamaica, and they found a little something. I mean, why can't the U.S. find a top table Premier League starting striker? A little something to come help us. I mean, I think you know what I mean. Like,
yeah,
good Lord, to find a guy like that to come in and just kind of help. I mean, my goodness.
Jamaica are yet to win at home. I will say that is something that I would be concerned about for them. But they've only played 3 home matches. They do have 5 coming up in the back half of this qualifying campaign. So,
the one thing I forgot to say about Jamaica that I meant to say is, don't forget they were handicapped by, I believe it was England and part of the European nations, where they labeled 2 of the games that they were going to as redless nations. So they did not have, I think, 4 of their starting 11 for the first 3 games. when they were getting
Yep.
absolutely just lambasted by people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's fair. Costa Rica, though, 9 points in fifth. Jamaica on 7 points in sixth. El Salvador, seventh with 6 points. And Honduras rounding out the 8 with 3 points. So my thing about both Panama and Jamaica, but maybe more specifically with Jamaica, is that's a 7-point gap that you have to make up in 6 games. That's a lot to have to combat. Now, again, you get to play Panama, granted on the road, but you do get to play Panama in January. So that is a chance to either steal points or, stop them from, making up any more ground. But I would be concerned if I were Jamaica, because your next window is Mexico at home, on the road at Panama, and Costa Rica at home. Again, you have not won at home this cycle. That's a lot to have to make up. All right, moving on from the table. Don't want to talk too much about other teams. I would like to talk more about the U.S. So as we look at what we have seen so far, again, this is a midterm evaluation. Caleb, what are your biggest positives from this U.S. men's national team from the first 8 matches of World Cup qualifying?
I mean, first and foremost, I think you've got to look at the experience that's been gained. We've got a really young group. So win or lose, just going through the trials and tribulations of what this year has been, I think it's invaluable experience, and I think it's going to pay dividends in this next, the next half of the cycle. We know what we can do. You've got a lot of guys that are playing a lot of key roles. They got their feet wet. There is no more, stepping in and kind of testing the waters. They know what it's like now. I think we turn it on, and I'm really excited to see how we kind of, how Gregg maneuvers all the talent coming up, pushing starters that we had locked in, and what's the old saying? It's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah.
I don't envy him, but it's a wealth of depth that we've not had, and that's, I guess, my biggest thing is what I'm most interested in seeing is who steps up, who really does anybody just lock in and take a role from somewhere where we had someone else possibly pinned in.
All right, so I like that, though. I mean, I think you're right. Experience and depth are probably the biggest positives that we have coming out of going into the back half of this qualification campaign. Andrew, what has been your biggest positive from the first 8 matches?
I'm kind of like Caleb. It's getting the younger players those important minutes. Obviously, Dos Acero is always a huge boost for the U.S. because you almost always seem to see a good run of form after something like that. Seeing some individual players that are starting to stand out, that are really starting to for once, the U.S., it feels to me, we don't have one avenue of attack. I've always felt that, like, if it was Landon Donovan, if it was Clint Dempsey, all those guys at older generation, you knew it was going through one person to get to the goal. Where now it's the U.S. can really attack you either flank, or we can come right at the middle. This might be the first time that we've seen that on display, which I think that's big for me, because that's how you compete with the bigger nations. Is you can't just be sitting on one person expecting that one person to carry you. We actually have options.
That's a good point. I think I kind of agree with both of you that it is a little bit of just the fact that we've had a lot of new players exposed to CONCACAF qualifying. But to be kind of more specific, I think my biggest positive is finding a midfield trio that I think we would all agree that the midfield trio that is the best is that Adams, McKenzie, Musa midfield, having that MMA midfield actually come and expose themselves as the best, right? Like, they have proven this is the best midfield trio we could put out there. I think that is the biggest positive, because we were kind of unsure what that would look like. I mean, I think we all knew, right? But, it was unsure of who would actually be that starting or that top choice midfield trio. And I think having that locked in as we finish qualifying and then hopefully go into the World Cup 2022 is, for me, the biggest positive, because we need good midfielders to make this system work. So that's our biggest positives. Got to obviously then talk about the biggest negative. So, Andrew, what's been your biggest negative from this team and a Burhalter and the coaching staff? But as a whole, you look at this. What's been your biggest negative from the first half of qualifying?
How do you lose 1-0 at Panama and beat Mexico 2-0? Like the inconsistencies. I mean, you can say whatever you want about players' injuries or whatever. The inconsistencies, whether I don't know to blame this on coaching or on players, both. But the fact that we cannot put together a window of 3 good matches in a row. It seems like you have a good half and you're off for a half. You play a good game, then all of a sudden it's like, what the heck was that?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most infuriating thing to me, because we're beyond, as a footballing nation, we're beyond the, hey, let's just hang on and get a win. We're at the point now where you should be able to go down and even to a bunkering nation that has 11 guys behind the ball. You should be able to figure out how to win that game 1-0. You can't, at this point, it's inexcusable in my opinion. And, that's, to me, that's the biggest negative, is that, we're sitting in this position where we're having to have the discussion of, are we going to make it? Aren't we going to make it? When we could already be sitting probably 5 points clear of everybody and saying, all right, win 2 games in this next window. And then we just bring up all the young guys for the remaining of the year and get them used to CONCACAF, and you start figuring out who your fringe players are versus having to, exhaust everyone just to get there.
Yeah, that's a good point of the inconsistency, both within a game and game to game. Caleb, what's been your biggest negative from the team this first half of qualifying?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I think that's the big ugly pimple right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just bright red and pussy. It's just ugly. The up and down roller coaster, just the lack of consistency. It's this Jekyll and Hyde. It's infuriating. It's so frustrating. Us as fans, it's infuriating for us. But I mean, you got to think these players, they're not unaware of this. They're doing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they'll figure it out. I think there's a lot of growing pains. We talked about the youth, the inexperience. I think they've learned a lot. This coaching staff has learned a lot. Andrew was saying he doesn't know if it's the coaching staff or the players. I'm kind of with you. I think it's a little bit of both. It's something that it must be, not like, hopefully it has to be corrected. Especially with, talking about Panama turning it on, Jamaica getting hot, and not saying that these teams are going to beat us to it, but they could keep us out. It's extremely, extremely frustrating. I don't know if I can take another, away CONCACAF just performance like the Bosnia and Herzegovina game that we just watched.
We've had a couple of those.
It's ugly.
Yeah,
it's horrible. Yeah, that's the biggest negative. It's got to be.
So my biggest negative kind of builds on what you both have said, and I think the inconsistencies have come on the road. And I think for me that it's not even an inconsistency. We're flat out bad on the road. And it seems like almost that we just have resigned to the fact that, oh, well, CONCACAF away is hard. So how could we even expect to play well? And I think that's bullshit, to be quite honest. And I that's been my biggest disappointment, is how bad we've been on the road. Outside of a good half at Honduras and a good first 20 minutes against Jamaica, we have not seen the best of this team on the road at all. I don't even think we've seen the best of this team even in that Honduras match, right? Maybe that Jamaica first opening 20 minutes was really good, but then we concede a goal and it turns to crap. So for me, the road woes have been really bad. We're yes, I know we've got to win on the road. We're 1-1-2, but that even in that one win, it was like we were so bad and we beat the worst team in the Ocho. So like I'm not super excited about the fact that we beat Honduras on the road when they're terrible. And that's concerning for me because looking ahead, we have Mexico on the road and Costa Rica on the road. And we can't go down there and lose to both of those. We have to get points at both of those, if not a win as well. So For me, that's been the biggest negative. I want to kind of flip the negative to a little bit and talk about the biggest disappointment. Maybe not something that's a negative in terms of like, oh, this is really bad, but something that you think you expected and it didn't come to fruition, or something that has just been a constant letdown for you. Andrew, what has been your biggest disappointment of this qualification campaign so far?
I don't know. Part of it, I think for me, one of the biggest disappointments is the fact that Burhalter has a tendency to overcoach. It's funny, everyone laughs at that, but you think about it.
It's true.
This is the probably, actually, it isn't the probably, it is the most gifted U.S. national team we've ever seen, and it will continue to get better as they grow and mature. But for whatever reason, it seems that Burhalter wants them to stick to a certain kind of build-up, stick to a certain kind of passing, and it lends to being predictable. And I think that's kind of my biggest disappointment that kind of goes along with the biggest negative is that, like, you can see the flashes of brilliance. You can see what it could be, but it seems like I always use the expression that someone's got a parking brake on. That, you can floor a car as hard as you want, but if you got a parking brake on, it's only going to go 30 miles an hour. And it feels like that's what we have right now. It feels like the U.S. is playing with a parking brake on, and Burhalter needs to just take the brake off and let him play and say, hey, listen, look for these few things and stop trying to tinker with every little thing here and there. The other disappointment I would say for me is the lack of finishing. Whether it's Pepe up front, Pulisic, the wingers, it seems like when the U.S. needs a goal to put a game away, until Mexico, we just could not find it. But we've got to get better at that because, there's some games that if you let it linger too long, that's going to be brutal.
Yeah, I think that a great example of that would have been that Jamaica game on the road where we played really well the first 20 minutes, and only got one goal out of it. I think it also, you could look at the Canada game at home where I know we didn't create as many chances if we wanted to, but I think that's kind of what you're talking about is dominate possession and only get one goal. Caleb, what's your biggest disappointment so far of the campaign?
My biggest disappointment is it's hand in hand with the biggest negative. It's the inconsistency. But to go a little further, I think it's, and you know me, I'm not a Burhalter basher. At the end of the day, for me, it's when you've got a coach, what are the results? And so far, we've got the ones we needed. That being said, his player selection is extremely disappointing. And here's why. If you continue to plant apple seeds and expecting oranges, it's madness, right? That's the definition of insanity. So if we have players that have proven time and time again that they cannot do the job, why do we continue to do it? And I understand as a coach, right? You have your the guys that you can trust. They're familiar, and I think that's why he keeps throwing them back out there. But it's like, I don't care if they're your best friend. I don't care if they're your brother-in-law. I don't care who they are. If they've shown that they can't do the job, why are we continuing to waste minutes on them, important minutes? And like you've alluded to before, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy almost. Like you want guys with experience, yet you are keeping guys from experience.
Right.
It's extremely disappointing.
Patrick Keeler on Twitter had no relation that I know of anyway. Patrick Keeler on Twitter said this after the Bosnia match, where he basically said as much of, if you want guys who know the system best, he was specifically talking about this camp that we just had. If you want to play the guys that know the system best, then of course the guys who have been in the system longest are most likely to get the start. And the reason that is because in training they know what you want. In the game, they in theory know what you want. But most importantly is in training. They've gone through the drills, they know what this thing is supposed to do and what you've praised other people for. So of course they're going to look better in training. I mean, if you want to bake an apple pie and you've never baked an apple pie before, and you're going to have to go through every instruction, check every instruction, make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be, Well, of course, your apple pie is not going to be as good as someone who has been baking apple pies for years. It's been all quarantine learning how to bake a pie. That's how it feels a little bit when you compare a guy like Christian Roldan and Caden Clark. Caden's making the apple pie for the first time. He clearly has a lot of potential. He's made a lot of other things really well, but Christian Roldan's had more experience making this apple pie. And I think that's kind of the way I kind of look at what you just talked about there, Caleb. It's inconsistent. It's disappointing that we haven't seen better players get more call-ups. And I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, but probably one guy who fits this example best is a guy like Luca Della Torre, who hasn't been able to get exposed to the system as much. So therefore, Burhalter doesn't think he knows it as well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's my thing. There are guys that they're showing that they can do it on club level, but because they haven't done it, they haven't made a pie with Burhalter, right? Like, well, we won't give them a chance. Man, it could be the best pie you've ever had.
Yeah.
Right?
You just don't know.
But you don't know.
They haven't had the chance to. I agree.
And when you're talking about the 23rd guy on the roster, why not let him try?
Right. So, okay, well, we don't have time to talk about that right now. We could, but actually, no, screw it. I'm gonna say that. Like, yeah, I think that's the problem is when we're talking about guys who are making up numbers 23 through 27, right? We know they're unlikely to really impact a game. So Burhalter has chosen to give those slots to guys who are good program guys, good system guys, right? They supposedly make practice go better. Great. The training drills. Are you actually making the guys around you better? Is your presence sharpening their skills? Just because you know that Burhalter wants you to go to cone A to B, or this pass goes C to D in a training drill, does that mean you're better? No. And I think that's been the frustrating part too, is you're wasting these slots on guys who, I don't even say they're good veteran presences, because I'm sorry, Christian Roldan's had 30 caps and has 1 assist, right? It's like he hasn't even had the benefit of being the guy who gets a goal in their debut. Like Cole Bassett may not do anything else the rest of his U.S. men's national team career. I don't think that's true. I think he's a great player, but he got a goal. It's more than Christian Roldan has really done. So I'm with you, Caleb. I think it's disappointing that we haven't really seen the best complete roster of talent that we could. And it feels like Burhalter is making excuses for why we can't see that. My biggest disappointment has been set pieces. That's been it. I thought for sure after watching both Nations League and Gold Cup that this team would be scoring a lot of set pieces. I cannot think of a single goal we have scored off a set piece in qualifying, because we haven't. We have not scored a set piece goal in qualifying. And that's bad, especially when you have a guy like Walker Zimmerman, Miles Robinson, you have Weston McKennie, you even had, Jossie Zarda, whoever's starting at the 9, Jossie Zarda's, Jordan Pifak, Ricardo Pepi. These are guys who aren't bad with, several, they're good in the air. We have too much talent in attacking set pieces to not be scoring on set pieces. And that's been, for me, my biggest disappointment, because I thought that we would be seeing at least a goal, a window on a set piece. And that, to me, is why we're struggling on the road, because we're not getting those set piece goals. We almost had one in El Salvador. Miles Robinson almost got one, but almost doesn't count. That was really the only chance we had off a set piece in that game. That Panama game, Panama scores off a set piece. If we had only had a chance like that, but we didn't. We have been abysmal on set pieces. And it comes down to the delivery and the set piece service, not necessarily the guys attacking the ball. So to flip from disappointment, what's been the biggest surprise or revelation, the best one that you've seen, Caleb? What's been your best revelation, surprise? Like this thing you did not expect to see coming?
Biggest surprise, probably Pepi.
Okay.
Coming into World Cup qualifiers, if you'd have told me that we'd be relying on an 18-year-old kid as our starting striker, I'm like, yeah, no, you're crazy. Pepe's got promise, but I would have put all my money and all my stock in Josh Sargent being the guy. You know what I mean? I think the Norwich transfer it hurt, Josh. You know, I'm really looking forward to them being relegated so that they can actually
Right.
play
It feels
and
like
he can have some
should have
confidence.
it feels like he should have just stayed with Bremen and just banged home a lot of goals in
I mean,
second Bundesliga.
well,
You know, like
Norwich is going to be a top table championship side, which means they're actually going to be controlling matches and playing good soccer. And I think, you know, a lot of some strikers are very confidence driven, right? And right now he's got none. You can see it in his touches, everything he's doing in his movement, everything is so just he's thinking and he's not playing, and so that hurt us. And that's why I don't think that he's in the plans at the moment. And sure, it's justified. I understand it. But the fact that Pepe has stepped up and played as well as he has, he's going through a little dip right now. I mean, the chance that he missed on Saturday night, my God, I don't honestly, I don't know what he was doing. I don't know how he missed that. But you know, that's not qualifying, but still, he's come in and he's played well. He's been 18 years old. He's got full of confidence. That's easily the biggest surprise for me. There's no way I would have expected that or you know, guessed that.
7 goal involvements for Pepe in 8 qualifying matches.
He's been good.
He didn't even start the first. He wasn't even a part of the picture in the first window. You know, he has 3 goals, 3 assists, and that goal that I think Leggett scored in Honduras, where it was like a shot that got saved. So like, yeah, Pepe I think is probably the best surprise we've had because we needed a striker. Is he consistently the best? No, because he's 18. But I'd rather have an inconsistent 18-year-old than a 21-year-old who consistently doesn't give us what we need. And that's where Josh Sargent is right now. Booch, what has been your biggest surprise / revelation of the first half of qualifying?
One, I would say I got a couple here. So one, biggest surprise was how long Turner held on to being goalkeeper 1. And I know I'm about to piss a lot of people off when I say this, but Stefan is goalkeeper 1. Turner is very good at stopping shots, but he got exposed pretty badly a couple of games. And people finally figured out if you put pressure on him, his decision making is very, very far behind. And people figured out he does not come off his line. And so they started having a lot more success against the U.S. driving those diagonal balls at people because he does not claim anything. So building on that, then defensively, what happened to John Brooks? And thank God for Miles Robinson. I think Miles Robinson coming out and basically being able to absorb John Brooks disappearing was absolutely massive for the U.S. And it gave everyone a confidence boost that, listen, we're not relying on just one person here, that we actually have some options. The other big thing for me is it's the midfield crunch. Everyone talks about MMA. I think in my mind, if Weah's healthy and Pulisic are healthy, those are your wingers. What's going to be really fun now that the U.S. you have Brendan Aronson, Gio Reyna, and Yunus Musa that are suddenly now competing for a secondary 8 spot, where now you suddenly have 3 central midfielders that all 3 play different styles, that if one isn't working against one team, you can sub one off, put another one on, and it completely changed the game on a drop like that, where that's, to me, is exciting. I think, you know, Burhalter getting a little more consistent with people is the last thing, but those are kind of the big things that really stood out that are kind of going forward for me.
Yeah, I think that is a good point about being, like I said at the top, I think MMA is our first choice, but the fact that we now have actual options is nice to see. And I think that's the thing for me about finding the first choice is now you can start building in what is that contingency plan, because the contingency plan can't be Leggett, Roldan, and Acosta playing an 8, or Leggett and like we've seen that Leggett and Acosta don't create chances. Why Acosta still gets played as an 8 is beyond me. I get that that's a position he plays for Colorado, but like he is our backup 6, and that's fine. He's been perfectly good at that. Why he has to be shoehorned into the field to play a more attacking, progressive position when he's just clearly not as good there, at least in this system, is stupid. And that's like we have options. We can put Reyna there. We can put Aarons in there. We could have a guy, you know, maybe it's McKinney who's out, so you have put someone else. You put maybe it is Leggett or Reyna in the McKinney position. We have options, and the fact that we just continue to use Acosta is disappointing. But the fact that we have options is a positive. Mine, and you mentioned it, Andrew. My biggest revelation is Miles Robinson, because I think we needed to find a consistently performing center back that we know we can have in the lineup with other guys. So I think Chris Richards, I'm not debating who's the best center back. That's not what I'm debating here. But I think Chris Richards, Walker Zimmerman, Mark McKenzie, or John Brooks are all great compliments to Miles Robinson. And I'm not saying that he's the best. I'm just saying, for me, he's the most known quantity of, okay, if we put him in, this is what he has. How do we pair someone to then get us the best defensive performance going from there? Because we saw that, you know, Chris Richards and Miles Robinson, pretty decent. Robinson and Zimmerman, pretty good. McKenzie's up and down, but, you know, I don't think they've been bad together. I think he has been consistent with other people as well. And I think for me, that's what I want from a center back, is that he's still consistent despite having a bunch of different other pairs that he has had to play with. So obviously I'm a big Miles Robinson fan. I think we all are, but I think he has really proven himself to be a valuable asset to the U.S. men's national team. But now I want to ask you, who's your MVP? Who's the most important player that we've had? Maybe not the one who scored the most or everything, but who's the most important, the most valuable player on this team right now? Caleb, who's the MVP?
It's tough. I think you could go a lot of different ways on that. For me, I think the most valuable player is probably Weston McKennie. I think we are an entirely different team.
Yes.
When he's on the field, just his energy. Is he the cleanest on the ball? No, but you know what? I don't need him to be. That's not his game. He tries stuff, and he's just, I think he's one of those types of people. He's just an infectious type person, and I think everyone feeds off of him. Not to mention, I mean, you talk about set pieces. I agree with you wholeheartedly, by the way. I think set pieces are something that really, really needs to improve. But, I mean, he's a monster. Let's just be honest. He's shown time again that he can do that. That's club and country.
Yep.
But then also his defensive bite. I mean, he's not afraid to get in there. Yeah, I think he's probably more of the attacking part of the MMA midfield. But he'll go box to box, and I think everybody, like, he might not be the leader that you're looking for, like if you're, you know, like the textbook leader,
right?
Yeah, you know, but
I don't want him to be the captain necessarily.
He's the bad boy that everybody wants to be.
Yeah.
Thank you. He's the unofficial leader. And no one's going to sit there and be like, oh, yeah, Wes is the leader of our team. No one would say that. But I think if everybody thought about it for a second, you know, the way he goes is the way the whole team goes. So to me, that's the most valuable player.
I'm going to just jump in because that's who I have as mine, because I think you see a definite decrease in performance when he's not on the field. I think the biggest example is that Canada match, where despite having all this possession and dominating Canada for the most part throughout the match, I think having to play someone not named Weston McKennie is why we didn't end up winning that match. Obviously, there are reasons why, and I think that goes to show about the why he's not the captain, but why maybe he's a leader, but not in the way that we think he is. Obviously, you know, breaking COVID protocol. Even if he wasn't the only one who did it, that's not good. But I think he's the most important player, and we need to have him on the field, because no one else does what he does on the field. And that doesn't mean that like he does anything particularly on the ball or anything special. It's just everything he does is what we need him to do, including also being very good in possession and also being very good defensive work rate, all these things, but he just does something on the field that we need and we miss when he's not there. Andrew, who's been your MVP?
I mean, McKinney obviously has to be in the conversation.
It can be McKinney. Like, we can all agree it's
well,
McKinney,
I mean,
right?
McKinney is good. I mean, it's also excuse me. Caleb was talking about how, like, you know, McKinney is the leader that, you know, you don't want everyone to be. It's like whenever Mexico starts some stuff, you know, stuff happens, and then McKinney shows up, and all of them are like, okay, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up now. I didn't mean to do that. Like really, he has become that enforcer, that like bad boy role that, like, you know, every team, like, I guess really it's the Jermaine Jones, that destroyer role that people know you don't mess with that guy, because if you do, it is going to hurt when it comes back at you. Tyler Adams,
needed him against Jamaica. I think that was something that was really missing. But okay.
So the only other two names you can really throw out there are Tyler Adams and Christian Pulisic. I mean, Tyler Adams, just because his work rate is second to none, and you can tell that teams play away from where he is on the field. Wherever he is, you can see.
But he's everywhere.
Well, yeah, and that's the problem, is the teams haven't figured out how to literally make him stay in a box and just sit still, because, you know, he is the Energizer Bunny. He does not stop running. Or I'm pretty sure he's powered by Energizer or something. Also, you got to say Pulisic, because that Mexico game, when Pulisic stepped on the field, you could tell there was another gear, and it was a complete mentality shift that you could tell that within 5 or 10 minutes, a goal was going to go in, and it was going to be Christian, or it was going to be something that Christian did, just straight up due to the fact that, you know, I don't know if that man in the mirror thing, I think that was McKinney, wasn't it? There, or was it Acosta?
It was Yedlin. It was Yedlin and yeah, it was definitely Yedlin. Maybe Yedlin.
Yeah.
Well, just the fact that you can tell that I mean, man, he took that personal, and just the fact that those three guys that I was mentioning, between if it's Adams, McKinney, or Pulisic, the three of them, they take things personally, man. Like, watch out, and they are the heart. They're the heartbeat. If you got Adams that's playing defense, you've got McKinney that's just doing everything, and then you got Pulisic now that it's just, you could tell he feels free to just run at defenders and not have to worry about it. And that's the worst case for anyone playing in the U.S. is you got three guys that can all be MVPs that are all feeling free to do what their jobs are and not having to think twice about it. So,
all right. Well, I think we're going to unanimously give McKinney.
Yeah, I mean,
the MVP for this so far. Yeah, we all kind of agree, you know, but I think that has been both the blessing and the curse of this U.S. men's national team so far, is there's not one guy who, like, absolutely does everything, to use the English term, takes the game by the scruff of the neck, or whatever you want to say for that. Last two questions. Now we've kind of evaluated, we've actually kind of gone through our process. We need to give grade. So what's our midterm grade for the U.S. men's national team? You know, we talked about a lot of things, but a couple of stats that we do need to talk about when it comes to the ultimate goal, which is to qualify for the World Cup. Again, we're second, 15 points, averaging 2.5 games at home. 2.5 points per game at home, averaging 1.25 points per game on the road. Not quite where we would want to be, but, you know, on pace, if you will, to qualify. Caleb, what's your grade right now for the U.S. men's national team in this qualification campaign?
I'm going to give them a B.
Okay.
Maybe a B minus, just because of how inconsistent it's been. But at the end of the day, we're passing, right? It could be a lot better. So obviously I'm not going to give them an A. We need to be top of the table for that. So there's room for improvement for sure. But so far the job is being done. So I feel comfortable. 80 to 85 range.
Okay. Definitely above average, but not. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Andrew, where would you say you would grade the U.S. men's national team right now?
I was going to say B minus as well, just due to the fact that obviously you're second in the table, you can't drop down to a C. You can't give them that poor of a grade, but it's got to be a B minus because, like we've said, the inconsistencies and everything, that not taking points when you should have, dropping points when you were in positions to win them. I mean, that's big deals to me. You can't expect a super high grade when you're not doing the little things right. Like, I'm a coach. I always tell my kids, you got to do the little things right, because when the big moment comes, you're ready, and then that break always ends up falling your way. where, you can't consistently keep doing the little things wrong, or then a big moment breaks against you, then another one breaks against you, and then it can start a bad cycle. So, but overall, I mean, not in a bad place, not in a great place, but I mean, we're in a position where we control our destiny. So B- it is.
Yeah, I kind of agree about the B-. I could maybe say a C+, because I think there have been too many inconsistencies, but it's definitely above average, obviously. But then you look at it and go, look, we are in the top half of the table. We're in a spot to qualify. Yes, we're only a point above people below us, but I think that we can confidently say that from what we've seen on the field, this has been a pretty good team. The problem is we haven't seen enough of that good team. And so that's why I'm kind of teetering between that C+, B-, because it's like, I'll probably say B- just because you see what it should be. It's not always there.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's a B- where it's like, yeah, okay, you've done everything that we checked, that we asked for, done some things pretty well, but not enough things really well. Okay, so B-, I think that feels right for all of us. Next guy we got a grade. We're just going to give this guy individually his own grade. Got to grade Gregg Berhalter on the way he has managed the team in this qualification process. I will be first to say that I know a lot of people want to criticize Gregg Berhalter, but my personal thought process about all this is he doing better than other coaches could do? And that's just how I look at it. But Andrew, how do you look at it, and where do you grade Gregg Berhalter on this?
I mean, I would give him a C.
Okay.
Mainly because, he's inconsistently consistent is kind of a way I would like to say it. You don't know what he's going to do, but you know that Burhalter is going to find a way to put Leggett, Acosta, or Roldan in there somehow. You know it's going to happen. And that's why he gets a C for me, is because, out of all the great things that have happened, I'm not going to say that when we do well, it's the players. When we do bad, it's the coach. But, sometimes his lineup selections are just baffling. Then he's like, oh, yeah, well, we made all these subs and it fixed the problem. Well, no, duh. You created a problem by putting out the original lineup you did, where he's making, I don't want to say he's making good moves. He's made the right moves, I should say, to, keep the team going in the right direction. And is it necessarily the choices coming out of the starting 11 that you would always want? No. And that's kind of why I kind of am docking him. It's because sometimes he did set this team up to fail. And other times, by the time we've now gotten to Mexico, he's progressing as a coach. And I think he's doing better, where it's not fair to say that, he deserves an F or anything like that. But I don't think he deserves a B or an A, because there have been a lot of questionable decisions that, resulted in things going against the U.S.
That's fair. I'll say that I do think he's been improving, because you look at the last cycle with Mexico and Jamaica, the lineups are fairly consistent.
Right.
Obviously, needed changes were made, but that was also because we only had 2 games in the cycle. So, Caleb, where do you grade Gregg Berhalter so far?
If you look at the year overall, I'll probably give him a B, just because of the results of Mexico, Gold Cup, CONCACAF Nations League, all that kind of stuff. If you're singling out World Cup qualifying, I'm going to drop him to a C. And a lot of it is on players, sure, but it all stems with the coach and the effort, the game plan, everything about away matches has just been absolutely mind-boggling. To me, he's, like you said, he's learning. He's shown that he does learn, but he's doing it slower than we all want. And I can understand that, right? I'm a coach. You've got more than just X's and O's. You have actual human beings that you're dealing with on a daily basis, and you have to show some sort of loyalty, to a certain extent. You don't want to show a guy like, hey, you mess up once, you're done, you're dead to me, right? So you have to, it's a delicate balance. I think sometimes he holds on a little bit too long. Gives guys maybe a little bit too long of a leash. but he has shown that he will eventually move on, right? How many matches did we watch Will Trapp when he first took
God.
over?
I mean, we
we're
still
all
got
pulling
to
our
see Jackson Ewell last match, and it's like,
what,
why?
which blows my mind. I don't understand, but whatever. He, like,
Yeah.
I think that's a very common theme when it comes to talking about his tenure is like, yeah, man, we've got some good results, but what is he doing? It's just this up and down, which, I guess that explains maybe the up and down nature of what we've seen in qualifying. I will say sometimes it doesn't matter as a coach. It doesn't matter how well you prepare your players. There are mental hurdles, and the away matches, I think, is just this mental hurdle that the guys, they've got to get over.
But
because,
I was going to say, I think it's both them, but I have to keep questioning what Burhalter is doing to prepare them for these matches that they're not.
Sure.
Part of it, I mean, you look at the Honduras match and the Panama match, and you can absolutely say the problem was lineup selection. That's on Burhalter. The El Salvador match, I think, was maybe a little bit more like, oh, okay, like, yeah, probably a little bit of a, El Salvador was geared up higher than anything I think we could have been prepared for. That was and we still looked okay enough to, I think we probably could have won that game personally. But that Honduras match, until he made the changes at halftime, that was on him for picking a bad lineup. Then he did it again at Panama. So
absolutely. I just know, like, I look at my girls, I got 14-year-old girls, and I try to teach them how to play soccer, right? Possession, and there's one team, like, we'll destroy all the other teams, but there's one team that they're just afraid. They're afraid to play. We'll go out for the first 2 minutes. They're doing exactly what I've hyped them up. I'm like talking to them. I'm like, we can do this. We're better than them. We really are. We're better than them. But the minute something goes wrong, boom, it just reverts right back to it's like turtles in a shell almost. It's like that watching these away matches sometimes. Like, we'll come out and we look good for little spurts, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, no, this is CONCACAF away, so let's hope for a draw. I don't know what it is, but I think it's more mental than any X's and O's that you can come up with. But yeah, I'm with you. There are certain times where, regardless of that, it was a setup, kind of doomed from the start. But to, I guess, the original question, to nail one answer down, I'm going to give him a C+ overall with the results from this entire year, but with the qualifying matches, I think it's going to pull it down to a C+.
I am going to try to judge him. I told him that I personally judge him on, is he doing better than other coaches could, right? I don't know if I have a definitive answer for that, because I think we've seen a lot of different coaching styles, but that have been with the U.S. national team in recent memory. I think he's definitely doing better than a guy who led us, the guys who led us in 2018. But I don't think that he's necessarily doing anything better than another type of coach similarly could have done it. Like Oscar Pareja is one that came up because he also was interviewed for the job. And I do wonder where we would be if it were Oscar Pareja getting this team prepared for matches rather than Gregg Berhalter. Both of them are possession oriented and attacking minded, but so there's that. The other one is I want to judge him based on what he wants to be judged on, right? He wants to change the way that we view the world views soccer in the US, the way that we play. He wants to, be a possession based, proactive, attacking team. And again, that hasn't been executed very specifically in CONCACAF away matches, which is the whole point of playing like that, right? Like, you play like that so that you can go into Panama or go into El Salvador or go to Jamaica and play them off the pitch with your quality. Now, obviously, I get that it's very unlikely that you do that every single match, and we have seen that at times. But on the whole, I haven't seen that come to fruition in the moments we need it most. we've never had a problem beating teams at home. We beat Honduras 6-0 last year with freaking Bruce Arena ball, So progressive, attacking, proactive soccer sounds really fun when you say it in an opening press conference, but we haven't seen it yet. And I still also think that he has not gotten the best out of his players individually or as a team. You can look at the Mexico matches and say that they performed really well there. That's great. You got to have that also then translate to Panama away or Canada at home. And he hasn't done that. And part of that is because of lineup selection. Part of that is because it seems like his players are too rigidly stuck in things. They're not really free to express themselves as much as they would like to. All teams have systems. All teams have parameters under which you attack and pass and move. But it just feels like we haven't seen the best out of this team yet. And I definitely think Burhalter is the guy who's inhibited that the most, which is why I'm giving him a C-, because I think based on what he wants to do, we have to judge him on those goals and criteria, and he hasn't quite reached that consistently. Have we done well in qualifying? Yeah. We've done well in qualifying historically, like playing not progressive, proactive soccer. In fact, you look at the 2014 and 2010 qualifying campaigns, we were pretty darn good not playing that way. So, and I would argue that even then we were still playing possession-based soccer. It was just a different way of doing it. But I look at I take him what he said he wanted to do, and I look at what we're doing, and it's not there. So that's why I have to give him a C- because he's not even living up to what he said he wanted to do. The results have been fine. We can talk about the Panama loss. That sucked. He's the first U.S. men's national team coach ever to lose to Panama in World Cup qualifying. I want to say that again. The first U.S. men's national team coach ever to lose to Panama in World Cup qualifying. Home or away. First loss we've ever had to them. That's not great. So, I don't know. I'm not satisfied with his performance. And it's not because I'm trying to bash Burhalter. It's because you have to look at what the stated expectations were. And he hasn't given that to us. So that's why I give him a C-. Last thoughts before we get out of here. Caleb, thanks for being here. Happy holidays. I have to ask you, if as we look at the final 6 matches, how many points do we get?
Let's go. I'm trying not to be overconfident. Let's go 10.
Okay, 10. So probably win all 3 of our home matches. I think we all would have. Let's just agree on that. Like 9 points is going to probably be hit. So, all right, 10 points. And where can we follow you on Twitter?
USMNT Corner. Come find me there. Talk about everything.
All right, Andrew, how many points do we get?
I think we're gonna get 12. I think we're gonna steal a win somewhere.
Okay. So do you think we steal a win so we get 4 wins? Or do you think we draw on the road?
Well, that's a good point. Let's
because I could see us stealing a win at like Costa Rica on the final match day, depending on where they stand in qualifying.
No, I'm gonna
say maybe stealing a win at Mexico.
No, so we gotta. All right, let's go ahead and say 13. We're gonna win. We're gonna win at Canada.
Wow.
We're gonna win our home games, and we're gonna tie at Costa Rica.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and call that, and that puts us top the table too.
Yeah.
Go ahead and call it what it is.
I'll say that I think 9 points in the bag. I think the most important thing is to tie Canada at Canada, and tie Mexico at Mexico. If you do those things and you're at 11 points, I think we're good. If you do that, then the result against Costa Rica on the final match day is kind of irrelevant, right? You're probably in a qualifying position and at least 1, 2, or 3. So I think more importantly, you just have to keep Canada and Mexico from getting full points at home. So I'm going to say 11. I think it would be nice if we got 12 because we didn't lose out. We did do the win at home, draw on the road. But we do have 2 very tough road matches coming up. Actually 3, to be quite honest. We never won in Costa Rica either. So 3 tough road matches coming up, 3 easy home games. So let's hope we do that. And Booch, where can we follow you on Twitter?
I am at A to Booch. I need to get a U.S. men's national team handle at some point. I'm realizing I'm a little lackluster in that, but so But yeah, Ada Booch, that's me. I will probably annoy you with some of my opinions, and unfortunately, that's just the way it goes.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for being here. If you need to follow them, those links will be in the show notes. Thank you both for being on here throughout this year. This is the first year we've had of Soccer for Us, so I'm very thankful that you all have been a part of this and have helped me talk about this team as we go through qualification. Hopefully, we are talking about a team headed to Qatar at the end of March 2022. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to the show. You can follow the show at Soccer for Us Pod. Happy holidays. I'm Bart. I'm out.